the way he placed the wrapper, wadded up onto the top of the bag and had it kind of between his feet, not quite stuffed under his seat. It was, I don't know, strange. In any case, as we were sitting across from each other, facing each other in two seats that, well, face each other, our gazes met. And sort of nondescript small talk began. Hey, how's it going? Nice weather, huh? That kind of thing. I don't really remember what the exact words were that we exchanged, but so clearly it was pretty empty, fluffy stuff that you just sort of politely say to people when you're sitting on a train with them. But while we were having small talk, chit chat, not just our faces and casement, but our eyes kind of locked for a really brief second. And I had the uncanny experience that I felt I could see into him, into his heart, into his soul, maybe. It's not the kind of thing that happens to me very often. And certainly not when I'm riding on a train. But when our eyes met for that brief moment, I saw something very disturbing, very dark within this young man. Not to sound melodramatic, but something homicidal, something capable of disturbing, violent things. It could have been my imagination. I don't know. But in the split second of this brief conversation that this gaze lock occurred, where I peered into this young man, he seemed to notice my noticing, and his expression changed, and his body language changed, and for a very brief second, not even a second, brief moment, he was looking at me, and then he glanced down at the bag, to glance down at the bag, and he caught me glancing at the bag, and clearly there's something about this bag. And the food wrapper wadded up, and it seemed like a napkin or something. In any case, the debris of his fast food meal appeared to be on the top of something else that was in the bag. And maybe I'm imagining things, or was imagining things, but it seemed that he wanted that bag to be unnoticed. As if there was something, I don't know, something in the bag that he did not want to know, or did not want me to know, or anybody else to know. Basically, he was hiding something in the bag. That's my guess. Again, this is probably all my imagination. In any case, that split second more or less ended our chit-chat, small talk. At the next station, a group of young men got on the train who were, well, dressed a bit tough guyish. Hooligans, ruffians, you know the type. And their behavior was, let's say, less than respectful of the people around them in the train. They seem to display a kind of behavior, kind of a, well, I associate with tough guy, or maybe genuine tough guys, maybe wannabe tough guys. The sort of young men who seem to it's as if a lack of tenderness and a willingness to do violence is the same thing as strength. In any case, the next station, an elderly woman got on the train, and I guess it should be noted that the tough guys were, at least two of the four, were seated in a chair or seat, that, well, you're supposed to relinquish to the elderly or the disabled or someone who needs the seat more than you, basically, is the deal. And there's a sign that says, these seats are reserved for the elderly and the handicapped, something like that. You'd think I'd know it verbatim as much as I ride public transportation. And the woman, as she got on the train, it seemed that she was, because she had just made the train, the door basically shut behind her, and was visibly disappointed that a seat wasn't available for her. And the four guys were, well, conspicuously not noticing the old lady or her say to these guys, just because it's like, come on, get the lady your seat. And anyway, before I could even connect my brain quickly enough to decide even to say something to these guys, the young man sitting across from me, in whom I had seen darkness, stood up and, well, forgive my vulgarity, but he looked at the group of guys and said, "What the fuck's wrong with you guys?" And then gestured to the old woman and helped her to his seat. And as she was sitting down, she said something to the young man to the effect of, "Your mother must be proud to have raised such a well-mannered young man." And the guy smiled congenially. I won't say insincerely, but it was clearly the smile and body language was a result of those good manners that he was raised with. Again, not that they were lacking in sincerity, just they seemed somewhat automatic to the situation. And then, as the old woman was settling herself in, getting, comfortable in the seat, said something like, "No, but really, that was very kind of you," and smiled in this tremendously graceful, friendly manner that exuded grace and gratitude in an almost fashion that created, it was as if there was almost like a shock wave of her friendliness and gratitude that just sort of radiated from her. And people actually noticed. I mean, it was almost like a Hollywood special effect. You could see this wave sort of radiating from her. And as the wave moved, people turned and noticed. And as the wave broke across the young man as he stood there, he visibly softened. And our eyes met again. And the darkness I had seen before was gone. And then, in like a split second, it was as if there was like a spell that was broken and he had remembered his bag. And his gaze fluttered between me and the bag, as if somehow I understood the significance of the bag and that somehow our previous interaction had led him to some decision, realization, something about the bag, and that something now has changed. So he said, "Excuse me, ma'am," and reached down to collect the bag, and then turned and got off the train. by this time, at the next stop. And I remember thinking that he had said something during the course of our brief conversation. I think he got off the train early. I don't think it was the stop that he had originally intended. Again, I didn't really take notes of our conversation, and like I said, I couldn't really remember it, but I just remember thinking at the time that, he got off the train early. Having taken the bag with him, and whatever its contents were that may or may not have been sinister or a source of shame or whatever. And the other thing was that the thug, hooligan, tough guys to some small degree had been shamed. I mean, that whole sort of, not quite confident enough to meet anybody else's gaze, looking at their feet. In any case, I don't know what any of it means, but it seems to me that something good happened